to me, the four headwinds that are hitting universities are, one, we've talked about, technological change. The second is the cost of education outpacing the value. The third is the political polarization that's occurring in society. And the fourth is actually the mental health and adolescent development, and how that has just fundamentally changed in the last 15, 20 years.
Welcome back to Case Studies. I'm here with my friend Taylor Randall, the president of the University of Utah.
Casey, I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you very much for inviting me down.
I've been looking forward to this
I'm
one
a big fan.
For a long time. And I don't know what my fascination is with education, especially higher education. But I've done some of these with people that I just admire, like Kim Clarks and Astrid Tumenes. And I've been looking forward to having this conversation. You run the University of Utah, which when we were talking earlier, it's
a $9 billion plus enterprise. That's
which is insane to me. Like it's hard to actually comprehend. And so this whole business model is so different. So I want to dive into that. I want to dive into like the actual business of the university and kind of how you break that up and even how you think about it and strategy that goes into it. But I think even going back further, it's just talking about your journey, where you came from and how you ended up leading kind of one of the best universities in the country.
Well, thanks. We can wander wherever you want to go, Casey, on this. I'm happy to start and tell you a little bit about how I got here first, and then maybe we can talk about the University of Utah. I actually graduated from the University of Utah and then went to work for a while and found myself not enjoying my work as much as I wanted. It wasn't giving me deep satisfaction in life. And so started thinking really hard when I was in graduate school, trying to make a pivot.
You grew up where? Where was home?
I grew up in Salt Lake City.
Okay, so like this is like your roots.
It probably gets even worse. My grandfather was the dean of the business school at the University of Utah. My father was a faculty member. So
how special
we're
is that?
We're almost 100 years of stuck in a rut, but we love it.
That is so special.
Yeah, it's fun.
Like that's incredible.
Yeah, it's fun. We love the institution. There's a lot of institutional memory in the family.
So the U was always just family. Like that was always a part of like the Randall upbringing.
Yeah, exactly. There are just some great stories. There used to be an old golf course at the university, and I learned how to golf there. It was $3, and you could play as much as you want. The funny story is my grandfather went to play with his colleagues one day. He lent his car out to one of his friends who had to run an errand, and he teed off on the first hole. He sliced it into his own windshield.
Come on. Did your grandpa?
Yeah, true story. So there are a lot of stories like that, and we love the University of Utah. We've been there a long time.
Yeah, so grew up in Utah, end up coming back, going to college there. Do your undergrad. Where did you go work?
So I worked for Arthur Andersen, which was one of the large accounting firms at the time. First year I spent as an auditor, and then I moved to the consulting practice. Again, wasn't kind of getting, I think, my satisfaction in life. It was a great firm, by the way. Made dear friends that I'm still good friends with today. But then decided to go back to grad school. So I went to the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School for an MBA. And while I was there, I decided to make the jump into academics. Somewhat influenced, obviously, by my family history, but also just spent some time both doing research and teaching. And I realized, just how great education is in terms of changing people's lives.
School, like from like a history of like business. One of the best business schools in the country.
For me, it was fantastic. It certainly has an incredible reputation. I think the people that are there and affiliated with it are just outstanding. They changed the way I thought about myself and my potential and the world. And that's probably in many ways what influences my motivation to make education.
Not to jump from the topic, but how? Like when you say they changed the way you saw the world.
So let me give you a real simple example, right? I show up, I've obviously been working. I've done well as an undergrad. I'm sitting in a circle of 5 people. We're getting to know each other. And fortunately, they start on the right side and they say, Frank, what are your aspirations in life? And he looks at everybody and says, well, I'm going to be the governor of the state of Georgia. And fortunately, they move the other way. And I'm like, holy cow. The next woman says, well, I'm going to be the first woman CEO of IBM. And I'm thinking, I got like 5 people to make up a much better story than I got for myself right now. But hanging out with people like that is motivating.
Your peers were just exceptional,
ambitious
people.
Right?
Yeah,
ambitious
driven.
People.
Yeah. I mean that is a theme of this podcast, is that proximity and how that impacts the way that you see the world.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating when you look back, because you don't know that it's happening kind of as you're living it. But you can look back and you can say, oh, wow, like I dreamed bigger after that moment, or this person.
Yeah. There's certainly 5 or 6 of those moments in my life. And that was a big one.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it impacted you. So you go do your MBA at Wharton. And then along the way, you decide, I actually want to go do this professionally. I want to go teach.
Yeah. I started doing some research work to kind of put myself through my MBA program. And this was another one of those life-changing moments. I saw these professors and what they were doing. So one of the professors I worked with was actually doing consulting for Major League Baseball. And his job was to try to think about how to make it more interesting. Right.
Baseball.
Baseball.
Wow.
And I will just tell you, he came up with some of the wildest ideas I've ever heard of that have never been adopted. But, things like, we ought to have certain plays actually represent more runs. So if you steal home, that should be 4, not 1. And, obviously these things didn't go very far. But when you get around the energy of someone who's trying to innovate, it's really contagious.
That would be such an insanely hard sport. That there have been like major innovations in that sport
for sure.
Like
for sure.
And probably the same problems that he was trying to solve, which is the games go too long.
Yeah,
people lose interest. Like it's been fascinating. I grew up as a baseball fan, and to see some of these, you kind of have almost a shot clock.
Yeah,
you got to step in.
So that was one of his recommendations.
It's so interesting,
for sure. Yeah.
But it's got to be hard to like change something that has so much tradition.
Well, it's easy to come up with the ideas, right?
Of course.
It's harder than to convince people that they ought to be changing something.
Again, that same theme is kind of your world today.
Yeah.
Which is like when you get into something that's big and bureaucratic and has a lot of changing something big.
Yeah.
Is an art and a science.
Yeah. And to be honest, that's why I like this moment in higher education. There is a ton of chaos, and I love operating in chaos.
You like it? I
love it because I think it's an opportunity to change organizations, give people different opportunities.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I'm not sure I'd be a president if it weren't for this moment, right? Where
the upheaval or
I love it.
And we're going to go to some of those kind of like moments in your life. We were talking in an airport in Paris about some of those with COVID and some of these, you don't know what the world's going to be next month or 3 months from now or 6 months from now, and having to navigate in the fog, is like looking back now, those are really fun moments, to say
they are.
So you go to Wharton, start doing research. What was your focus on research?
So ironically, at the time, I was in operations strategy. And at the time, the world was offshoring manufacturing to China and Taiwan.
So kind of the opposite of.
And so that was what I began to study, is how that affected organizations and the way they had to structure themselves. And
back then, so much of it had to do with the cost of labor, right?
100%.
Wasn't that the main driver?
Yeah.
Kind of at that point?
It was. In fact, the thing I looked at was, what were the other trade-offs? What were you giving up? For those low labor costs? And it was fun. I did a lot of case studies. I spent a lot of time studying the U.S. bicycle industry, which turned out to be a really interesting area of study because all the manufacturing was moving offshore. It was typical of many industries at the time. And you saw some pretty sharp compromises they had to start making when they moved manufacturing overseas.
Yeah. So you're studying that. You finish up at Wharton.
Yep.
And then where do you go from Wharton?
So I started actually, when you finish a PhD,
But did you do your PhD at Wharton?
I did.
Okay, so you did both. You did
so I did my MBA and my
PhD.
PhD there, yeah. And so once you finish a PhD, you end up having to go on the job market, and you have to give an hour and a half long talk to the faculty to show that you've got some intellect. And so I interviewed at probably 24 universities, and interestingly, I had a job offer that I had accepted at the University of Chicago, but ended up, just for some family reasons, deciding we needed to get back to Utah.
And came home.
And ended up coming home. And it's been really good for me. What is amazing about Utah and the University of Utah is the ethos of the state is also in the university, much like many of the universities. They're much less bureaucratic. That may be hard for listeners to actually understand, but universities in Utah are much less bureaucratic than other places.
Wow.
They're actually much more innovative. And, you look across the state, there's a lot more change going on in our universities than there is anywhere else. And to me, that's exciting because I like the change.
Yeah. So you come here, and what was the start? Was it just always just jumping right into the business school?
Yeah, I did. I started as a professor. And then one of the things that really changed me is I was early on the faculty advisor to a program called the University Venture Fund.
Okay.
And what we did is we raised $20 million of venture capital, approximately. And, I obviously didn't do it, but I got to advise students on live case studies. And so, we were looking at many of the deals that have been funded here in Utah, and trying to make investment decisions. What it did for me is I realized that the classroom was not the only way you should actually be providing education, which I think has really shaped my educational philosophy, that we have got to recognize what the classroom is good for, but also realize that you can, in some sense, break the tyranny of the classroom, right? And actually create experiences for students where they can put these concepts together and learn in much quicker ways. And I actually think one of the big threats to the classroom-based education is technology, has been the internet. It's now AI.
Yeah.
But what students can't do is curate remarkable experiences for themselves. And I think actually that's the business that universities need to be in.
Is curating those experiences.
Exactly.
So give some examples of that, because I think about this a lot. I dropped out of college.
Yeah.
Went the entrepreneurial route.
Yeah.
Went back and did executive education, which was really helpful for me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that I could do what I'm doing in my career without it.
Yeah.
So education has always been really important to me.
Yeah.
Formal education and like the normal timeline wasn't my timeline.
Yeah.
But I'm fascinated with innovation that's taken place and this monumental shift with artificial intelligence and AI, and how that both accelerates and also disrupts higher education.
Yeah.
And I know this is that's kind of a broad theme, but you've got to be experiencing it almost on like a daily/weekly.
Yeah.
It's just speeding up.
100%. And I actually think a university like the University of Utah, because we are more than just a set of classrooms, is actually really, really well positioned for this new day and age. And so let me give you some simple examples and then maybe tell you a little bit the philosophy. So when Peter Thiel announced that he was going to pay people $100,000 not to go to school and come be an entrepreneur, we looked at that and we said, that's an incredible thesis. I wonder if we could actually do the opposite. I wonder if we could make university so frictionless for an entrepreneur, they would actually want to stay here. So we created, this is when I was in the business school, a concept called Lassonde Studios.
Yep.
It hosts 400 entrepreneurs a year. Before we had this essentially dorm for entrepreneurs, we were starting 30 student business a year. We're now starting close to 400 a year, right? Now, do all of those successful? No, but it completely changes the educational experience, right?
And 100%, it's a cultural thing too.
Yeah.
Like if
exactly.
you establish a culture of entrepreneurship that actually embraces it, like you're just going to attract that type of individual. And so,
so one, you're attracting different people. Two, you talk to the students, even though their businesses may not really get anywhere, they completely change the way they take classes. They're like, you know what? I want to learn this. I want to learn that. I want to learn that. It's all around a passion. You know that. You're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You are engaged in a passion project
and
every moment of the day.
You just learn so much more.
Right. Like you remember it. You retain it.
When you have to make payroll.
Yeah.
Or there's these trade-offs in investment into a tech. Like, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
And these concepts, like I think about it, you know, my entrepreneurial journey was, I worked for an organization for a lot of years.
Yeah.
So a lot of like those heavier decisions, I never had to make those trade-offs. You know, I was under an umbrella that shielded me from a lot of that.
So now take that, right? Take that experience that an entrepreneur might have and say, how would you give somebody credit for that? And then take it over here and say, all right, if I needed somebody to learn about a creative industry, right? Graphical arts, music, how would I create that same experience? Or what about medicine? And so literally what we think our opportunity is to create at scale experiences like that. So our next experiment has been around what we call societal impact or social impact, right? If there's a societal problem, how would you organize a team of people to solve that problem? Is it hunger? Is it a water problem? What is it? And what are the tools that you ought to learn? Are you going to start a nonprofit? Are you going to start a for-profit business to solve it? Are you going to just start an activist group? What are you going to do, right? How do you organize? What are the skills you need to solve a social problem? So we literally have 8 of these concepts we're putting together. And what's interesting about the University of Utah is we've been a commuter campus, and I'm building a city right now. And I'm not just going to build housing. I'm going to build an experience.
How cool is that?
Right. And we're going to have 10 of these things. So
because ultimately,
show up,
like,
right?
And that was kind of what we were discussing before was like that idea of live experiences. You think in the world of AI, the human experience becomes even that much more important and relevant. You know what I mean? Because you can actually outsource a lot of these hard skills that before were very tough to acquire. You know what I mean? Where now they're kind of becoming commoditized. Like a lot of the stuff you studied in college, the accounting and the coding and the, you know, the.
Yeah. But, and in fact, if you look, and you were probably this person, right? And got frustrated by the educational system. Most people that make it into college have the ability to self-teach. So when you hand them artificial intelligence,
it's an accelerator.
Yeah. So what you've got to do is put fuel on the fire.
Yeah.
Give them a moment, an experience. What do they not have? They don't have the interaction with people, the ability to form teams, the confidence to tackle the big problems of the world, leadership.
100%.
So that's where I think the experience, right, and the experience building comes. Now, why is a university like ours better? Because we already have laboratories. We have hospitals.
Yeah.
We have sports programs. Everything we do should be around building a student experience to let them experience that.
Yeah. No, it's so cool. So you navigate kind of that track, and I didn't know about the venture fund, which is so incredible. When was this?
Oh, it would have been early 2000s.
Because $20 million in early 2000s is a real number.
It was a lot. It was a lot. We had 2 or 3 exits, which were good. I mean, I wouldn't call it a top tier fund. We were usually follow-on investments. We never led deals. But I look at the individuals that went through that was transformative for them, right? They became entrepreneurs.
Just a real life experience.
It was 100%. And, you know, you can do a Harvard case study and it's all in 20 pages for you, right? But when you get somebody that hands you a deal and you have to start making phone calls to figure out a technology or whether they have legitimate customers, that's a different experience.
How much of that led to the Entrepreneurial Institute?
A lot.
That influenced that a lot.
Yeah.
And what was like the pain? Like, what was the pain that you were seeing? Like, oh, this doesn't exist here and it needs to exist.
What we saw was this incredible urge among students to start their own businesses. And yet they didn't have the tools at their fingertips. And again, what we wanted to do is say, let's take away that friction. Let's create a different culture. We literally took, 10 trips around the country. We looked at the time, I think, we actually went to, there was only one WeWork location at the time we were planning this, and we visited it. We visited innovation spaces, co-working spaces in countries around the country. I actually went to a hippie colony.
How cool is that?
To just see how,
just to go see, like,
just to see how how they lived and shared.
You were
services.
Early on this.
Yeah, we were.
Because you see it today, and it's kind of more just generally accepted. Co-working spaces everywhere. Even entrepreneurial institutes is kind of more common. But this is early. Like the first WeWork, like what did you want to capture before you started? Like what was it that you said?
So the exercise we went through was pretty interesting. We said, all right, take a classroom and tear it apart, and take, an incubator or an entrepreneurial experience and tear it apart. And how would you put those two back together in a different way so that the two could happen at the same time rather than keeping them separate? Right. And the best analogy I can give is take a look at all the things that a cell phone does today.
Yep.
It's not a telephone.
Well, it's insane.
And a camera stuck together with duct tape, right? Is an integrated redesigned system.
Yep.
And that is exactly the design process we went through. And we're doing that again and again now to design all
when
of
you
our
say
other
we,
experiences.
like who do you have on your team to make sure that experience, it's one thing to have the concept and it's something else to like execute.
Yeah. We use an incredible futurist, and then we also use a remarkable architect. And then I have a vice president of innovation that runs special projects for me. And I just hand these things off, and we give them deadlines, and we just say, all right, we got to be ready to go. There's also innovative financing, right, to how these things come together. So what's interesting about the Lassonde studios is, instead of going to a donor and saying, we need $20 million, we went to this donor and said, we'd like to invest in a real estate project. And what we're going to do is take the profits off of that real estate project, and we're going to feed the system. So you create this self-generating system. So students come in, they're paying rent for their dorm, but they're also paying for co-locating space.
Yeah.
And then whatever's left over, we actually put back into the student program.
Wow.
So they kind of get it all back in terms of community good.
Yeah. That's incredible. Who was doing that before you guys did it?
So interestingly, we didn't see anybody. And
it's just a concept.
It's turned out to be a great model. We've now done 2 of these. Yeah.
Wow. So when was the switch from the venture fund, kind of building out the entrepreneurship center, to taking a more senior role in the university?
Yeah, so I did 8 years as a faculty member doing the venture fund. And then my MBA training kind of started taking over, and I realized, I can keep doing research and teaching, and I love that. I still do. I'd go back to do it, any second.
Yeah.
But I realized I wanted to start building an organization. And so I was on a sabbatical. We were living in France. They give you these things called sabbaticals. Real world, I guess, doesn't do that often. But, I was spending some time kind of trying to retool myself, which is what you're supposed to do. And the dean of the business school reached out and said, hey, I'm going to be stepping down. I'd like you to consider applying for the job. And what was amazing about that is that it was kind of the opportunity I was looking for. I wanted to build an organization. But it happened in the financial crisis, right? The real estate meltdown, if any of our listeners remember that, where the world just came unglued. So I got put in as dean, and immediately, I can't remember this exact number, but it was like, you need to cut your budget 20%. Well, we were like 90% labor. So this meant
a lot of heads.
I was a lot of heads. And I had done my sabbatical at a private business school. And, this thing came to mind. I said, look, if you could actually do this in a private way, why wouldn't we do that? So we were mostly state funded at the time. And what I basically did is I went to the university president. I said, look, why don't we not cut 20% of the state funds? Let's cut 100%. But what I want is the ability to set price differently. I want to be able to fundraise. I want to get I had about 5 things that I needed the freedom to do.
Yeah.
And so we went through a process of privatizing the business school at the University of Utah, and it allowed us to grow.
How crazy is that?
In amazing ways.
Like, where is this idea coming from? Like, had you experienced it in?
Well, I mean, you mentioned it yourself, Casey. You said when you can't make payroll, you start getting really creative, right?
It's fascinating to me because I'm like listening to these themes of this creative financing on the Entrepreneurial Institute, or, even just hey, we're going to go get rid of all state funding because it comes with strings and we don't want those strings. So we actually want the ability to go do it differently.
Right.
Set price,
right.
Fundraise, do some different things. But those are bold moves. Like the state funds have got to kind of be like a safety net. It's got to kind of
for sure
feel good to know that there's some automatic funds coming in.
For sure. There's no question. Now, in fairness, I could see pretty substantial growth opportunities.
So you were excited.
Yeah.
You thought that the state funds were holding you back.
Yeah. I mean,
holding the university back.
The state funds weren't so much the issue. It was the decision rights around growth that we needed. Right. So I don't want to overemphasize that. The issue around state funds was really other areas of the university didn't have those growth opportunities. So if I could contribute back to those other areas of the university and, basically float on my own bottom, I would love to do that.
It's incredible.
And we did. We experienced, double-digit growth from there on out. We were probably around a 25. These numbers aren't exact. We're probably around a $25 million enterprise, and we grew revenues well above $100 million.
And what were the drivers outside of, college just got more expensive, so that's got to be one of them.
Innovation. We expanded access for students in some pretty substantial ways. The business school, in terms of number of students, grew a lot during that time period.
From what to what? Like how many?
I can't even remember the numbers. It was in the thousands of students. We opened up a lot of new programs. The master's level, we opened up a real estate program, information systems program.
So that's actually fascinating because that was executive education and different specialized master's programs. It feels like the last 25 years, there's been so much more of that. The specialization, the MRETs, the masters in finance,
all those were what we were seeing is I had an MBA, but we were seeing really a lot of complaints that the MBA wasn't
general.
It was too general. And so we just said, look, let's take on a specialization approach, and we built out a number of those.
Because the MRET program has become one of the better ones in the country, right?
It really has. I think it's close to 100% placement.
Yeah.
I love the way it's taught and the way it's designed. This obviously wasn't me, but the faculty are amazing the way they do it. They really are working with industry the whole time. So, by the time you're done, you've had exposure to practitioners and they've already hired you.
And college had to have been so unique. I know at that time with the GFC, like there was a lot of just professions that just disappeared. Like I have a bunch of friends that at that point said, I need to go get more education.
Yeah.
Because I'm not selling any real estate, or I'm, I just lost my job or whatever it was. Like there was this big kind of like push to, oh man, I need to like level up or I'm going to get left behind.
Yeah. So that 1 year program, right, that could even be done in, 2, maybe 3 semesters was just a sweet spot we saw in the market. And the payback period on those degrees were under 2 years.
Wow.
So
you got it and you could instantly go make your money back. So my wife is doing an MBA right now at BYU.
Yeah, great program, by the way.
It's been life-changing for her.
Yeah.
And it's so fun. We talk about that, even in our foundation, and one of kind of the core themes is education, and don't fully know whether it's, elementary up to kind of where it's going to be, but just that process of improvement.
Yeah.
That how that changes your life. And, for me, I know it changed my life. And I'm watching my wife go through this process of like, she's coming out of this MBA with this swagger and this confidence and like this pride of like, I just did something really hard.
Yeah.
Around amazing people.
Yeah.
And you've got to experience that all the time. I mean, that's been your life.
Yeah.
But for us, we're kind of, there's periods of life we're jumping in.
Yeah, it's, I mentioned there are like 5 moments in my life where, I had a change. One was obviously that MBA experience. Another was actually an undergraduate English teacher who I'd just gotten back from a mission from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I wrote my first essay, and he gave it back to me, and I had an F. And there was a little note at the bottom that said, "Come see me." And he said, "Man, that was horrible. But I'm going to give you a chance to rewrite it." And so I rewrote it, and I gave it back to him, and he gave me a D. He said, "Come see me again." I rewrote that thing 4 times. And at the end of that exercise, I knew it was a lot better, but he looked at me and said, "You need to have the confidence, right, to learn what you don't know, and that making mistakes isn't a problem." And I credit him for basically giving me the confidence to overcome mistakes. And, that's what a great professor can do.
But that had to like shocked you.
Oh yeah.
To see an F on a paper. Like,
sure,
like bet. I'm just, from knowing you, it feels like you've excelled specifically around education your whole life.
Yeah. If I have one skill, I can take standardized tests, Casey. I'm really good at that.
And so you get an F.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which it had to have been like him saying, I see potential.
Yeah.
But there's a lesson to be taught here, and this isn't Taylor's best.
Yep.
Which is like so special to me. Like I love like people that care that much.
And by the way, I'm not sure AI will ever get us to that, right? That human interaction where somebody looks you in the eye and says, this stinks, but I know you can do better.
Yeah.
And in my mind, that's what we've got to do, is we've got to take those great faculty and put them in those positions rather than in the positions that AI can do for them.
So I had Kim Clark on the podcast, and he was talking about this experience of going to Harvard, and he hated it as an undergraduate. It was hard. He was lonely, and he goes on a mission. He comes back and he goes to BYU, and he's kind of a bit lost. He was this prestigious university, and he was really kind of coming home because he was lonely. And he had, I think it was a mentor. I can't remember the story. Somebody in higher ed that told him, he said, "What should I study?" And he said, "Don't study topics, take professors." And he gave him a list of the best professors at the university. And he just took everything that they taught.
Yeah.
And he said it was the best advice I've ever received. And it set topics on fire for me that I had no interest in, but that professor brought it to life and ultimately ended up going into business and finance. But it was because of a particular professor that took this topic and brought it to life. And I was listening to that and I'm like, man, what a gift.
Yeah.
When you have those people that can take take something and teach it in a way that changes people's lives. I'm like, that is a gift.
You are 100%, I think, on target there. And by the way, Kim Clark is one of my mentors, one of the people I actually look up to in this world. And I think that's pretty wise advice.
No, it's pretty profound. I was thinking about it for me. I'm like, who are those people that have set the world on fire for me that, change me? And there's a handful of them. And they're like, you reverence those people because you're like, man, that was a crossroads. That was a vulnerable time, or that was a pivotal time. Anyway, I love that stuff. So you, dean of the business school, did that for a long time.
Did it for 12 years.
Tons of growth.
Yeah.
Did you ever have aspirations beyond that, or was that up until that point, was that the end?
Well, I kind of take my career in kind of chunks, right? And I wouldn't say there's a time to them, but I knew my time at the business school was running out. Organizations need a change.
Yeah.
You need a new leader. You've kind of run your course. And so I was actually looking at leaving academics at the time and was exploring a variety of opportunities in the business world, and struggling with the same, I think, question I had right when I was in my early 20s. I am motivated by meaning and something that's actually going to have a direct effect on the development of individuals or changing problems in the world. And so I was struggling to find that next thing.
Yeah.
And
because you had to have had all sorts of commercial opportunities. I mean, just being in that role.
Yeah, I had a number of them.
You just end up knowing everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
it is a fun role that way, to be sure. But at the end of the day, this opportunity to apply for the presidency at the University of Utah came about. And I decided to take a run at it.
Because that's a crazy competitive process.
It is. There are about 4 rounds of interviews. At the time, it was a public process.
Yeah.
So, you kind of get vetted publicly by your colleagues and students and faculty.
It's got to be pretty humbling.
Yeah,
because you kind of get laid bare a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you certainly know what your weaknesses are.
For sure. Just, if they killed Jesus, you can't, you're not going to skate through life without some haters and some people that, aren't exactly cheering for you. And so it's and to kind of put yourself in the arena, if you will, it's got to be a bit humbling to go through that. And
it is. I don't think it's the same as an elected process, but it has that flavor.
Yeah. And ultimately, how did that kind of culminate?
Well, so, what you have to do is you have to put together a set of ideas around the university. And, I started by just articulating what I think, some of the basic headwinds of the universities are. And then, trying to say how you would solve that. And part of the how is how you're going to engage faculty, staff, students in solving that problem with you, right? And so, to me, the 4 headwinds that are hitting universities are, one, we've talked about, technological change. The second is the cost of education outpacing the value. The third is the political polarization that's occurring in society. And the fourth is actually the mental health and and adolescent development, and how that has just fundamentally changed in the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And so, my thesis is that universities need to actually be retooled to be able to address those 4 challenges. And that was kind of part of my pitch.
So talk to me about being president. So we were discussing University of Utah, and shocked is probably, I'd probably say I'm shocked at what University of Utah is. And maybe it's just ignorance on my end. But when I think of a university, I think of you pay tuition and you go to school, and that's the business. And when we're talking, that's not University of Utah.
Yeah, the University of Utah, is unique among public institutions given the scope of kind of what we manage and what we do. So it is true, we're not a typical educational institution. But it also gives us amazing opportunity to drive economic growth, to drive the health of a population, and to
$9
innovate.
billion of revenue. Like, what company's bigger in Utah than the?
We're certainly one of the largest, and nearly 40,000 employees, 38,000, several million patient visits a year.
Had no idea.
Yeah, it's fun. It's honestly a blast to be able to.
So break it down for me. Break down the business units. If it's got to be so fun for you, being a business guy.
Yeah.
To step into this role where you're like, oh, wow, this is a big business.
Yeah. So first you have a healthcare system that is differentiated because it's an academic healthcare system. So we obviously have the state's medical school, but we also train, in terms of residents, almost 1,000 residents, doctors,
Whoa.
right? So we are the training ground in the healthcare system for doctors in the Intermountain West. We're also differentiated.
So this is 1,000 residents that are coming from other medical schools.
They could be coming from ours, all over, right?
Wow.
All over the place. But the healthcare system itself is differentiated because it is so tied to research and innovation. So we will do massive numbers of clinical trials in a year. Here in Utah County, we're building out a Huntsman Cancer Institute that is going to bring clinical trials directly to Utah County. And when you're at the end and don't have any other options, clinical trials are an important part of trying to save people's lives. And we are both, coming up with new therapeutics and new solutions.
And clinical
all
trials, this is the stuff that's not approved.
Right.
But
in the approval process.
That you've got somebody that's basically saying, I'll try anything.
I would like to try it.
I'll be the guinea pig.
Yeah.
Because this is my last chance. Or
there's a bit of safety protocol around it, but certainly that is.
No, but I put myself in that role, and I would be saying
that's part of the flavor.
Yeah, I want to try. I want to give it a go.
Yeah, and those are extremely, extremely important. Is just that access to cutting edge. Often, innovations in healthcare, particularly in treatment paths, occur first through academic medical centers.
Yeah.
And so that is our key
cool
role.
Is that? Yeah. That's got to be one of the most fulfilling parts of your role.
Yeah, we will start clinical trials on a really interesting treatment for heart disease relatively soon. And I'm going to oversimplify it, but it's literally like an injection, right? That uses a virus to attach healthy cells to your heart and rebuild muscle tissue. And it's really amazing.
It's got to be something that you're so proud when you're how rad are the people that I work with? You've got people,
oh my gosh,
changing the world right here. You know what I mean?
We had one individual this year, one of Time Magazine's inventions of the year that basically came up with a drug that prevents the development of HIV in the body. We've got another invention that was one of Time's inventions of the year is actually a bionic hand. Those are not new, but the ability to touch, right? So say someone has lost the ability to move their arms.
Yeah.
We can actually now put a chip in your brain and allow you to move a hand and actually feel, right? And so those are really cool things. One of the things we're going to be investing in is kind of neurobionics, right? So the ability to manipulate bionic arms and legs, with the brain. So
it's even just that, just you discussing that, it's when you talk about meaning and purpose and you're changing the world. You don't want to oversimplify it, but you're on the cutting edge of changing the world. I think about, your dad or my dad or generations before us and life expectancy.
Yeah.
And not just life expectancy, but living healthy.
Yeah.
When I'm praying and meditating and going through the things that I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
Living in 2025 is one of those things.
It is. We are not being chased around by dinosaurs.
It's
right
crazy,
now. That is for sure.
you're on the that research school is the cutting edge of that, which has got to just be like so fulfilling.
Yeah. In fact, one of the things that I think we're advocating for federally is just an increase. This is a remarkable time in kind of human development, and it just seems to be speeding up. But you think about genetics and artificial intelligence and bionics and all these things coming together. Now is a moment to be actually investing in these discoveries. Heavy.
Yeah.
Moment. Yeah.
So exciting. So you've got the medical that ends up being about half of the revenue.
Yeah, a little more.
$4+ billion of the 9.
Yeah.
What's the other breakdown in like the?
Yeah, and so then if you look at kind of what I call the research and innovation enterprise, you got federal funding that's close to $800 million, and then businesses that we own that are about $1 billion. And a lot of those are medical related, so you could actually toss some of those into the medical system. Then you've got,
but these are wholly owned businesses.
Yeah,
these are like the profits of these businesses go back to the university.
Yeah, some of them are nonprofits, but yeah, the excess cash kind of feeds the system. And then we've got millions upon millions in real estate that that we develop. And one of the interesting concepts that we're working on, and particularly around the Huntsman Cancer Institute in Utah County, is actually bringing, along with a research program, research enterprises from other businesses, right? So cancer companies that want to do research with us, actually locating and actually using this as a tool for economic development with really high-paying jobs of individuals that want to work in labs and create a biotech
So cluster. I sat down with Peter and went through kind of their vision for that, and like being a Utah County guy, like how exciting that's right down the road.
Yeah.
Like, and it really does bring,
to us, it brings all the institutions in Utah County together.
It's super special. Like me and my wife went to UVU. We're, big supporters of UVU.
Thank you, by the way, for UVU. Yeah, that's amazing. We need you.
UVU's incredible. Like Astrid has done such a phenomenal job with that university and Matt before. But you take Huntsman and it really does kind of bring them all together. Because you take Utah, that's been the leader for how many years with the medical school and the cancer center. But now you have BYU that's doing their medical school. Yeah. And ultimately it's going to end up being just a tremendous amount of talent.
Yeah.
That's changing the world. Like it's really exciting.
Yeah. My theory of how higher education institutions ought to work together is collaborative. So what you do is you bring the best of what everybody has, right? And UVU, incredible size of student body, incredibly entrepreneurial, right? They want to get involved in changing the world. You bring a research prowess from the University of Utah. And then if you look, for example, at what BYU is going to have with their global, reach in terms of their med school, but what they have already, and you put those together.
So
imagine
exciting.
What might happen.
No,
right? Isn't that cool?
It's truly like it. Yeah, it really exciting.
Yeah, that excites me a lot.
What else? Innovation hub, real estate.
Obviously, we're looking to innovate in just the traditional education space, and maybe I can just tell you one kind of fun story.
I love it.
We spun out a company called Proxima. Because what we saw is our healthcare system wasn't getting the workforce training that it needed. And we're launching a new hospital in West Valley, Utah. And West Valley, Utah is a pretty amazing place, super impressive place. Ton of immigrants to the state of Utah, but it doesn't have great health outcomes. And it also doesn't have great economic outcomes in terms of people going to school.
Yeah.
And we sat down and we said, well, what's the problem? And not surprisingly, they came back and they said, well, I got to make some money for my family, right?
Yeah.
I can't go spend 4 years at your institution. And so sat down with an incredible group of leaders. I mentioned Rich Saunders before. He left the health department. He's actually running this institution. And we said, what if we were to design a company that basically took individuals that couldn't hit traditional education, and let's focus on our healthcare system. And we just want you to drive non-traditional learners into the workforce of our healthcare system. Because I'm hiring thousands of them, right? Thousands of them. And I've got to have 1,500 employees in this new hospital. And let's make them come from West Valley, Utah. And so he literally has 600-700 people in the pipeline where they come in, they get a little bit of training, they get hired by our healthcare system, and then a few months later, they come back and they get their next certificate.
That fires me up.
And so they literally can go from like a certifying nursing assistant over time, and they could actually get an MD, right? And that's very, very non-traditional.
That is like so inspiring to me. Like when I think of the American dream, I'm like the dream, the pitch is that you can change your station, in life. That that these opportunities, but it takes someone creating them. You know what I mean? And like you're just in a unique spot, and the university's in a unique spot where you can influence that. You know what I mean? And like I don't know, that's honestly the reason UVU is so important to us, is because it fills that gap.
It does.
So many of the students there are first generation college kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's fundamentally like it's changing generations of families that can actually get through that process and get skills.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
And that I think is still the promise of education. It's the data would still suggest, even with those criticisms, that the single best intervention that we can take as a society is to get somebody some of that training.
Yeah.
Right. And get them.
And I would even, for me, I would say like I'm an education critic, or I have been. Like I find myself kind of like piling on and saying, it's probably not worth it or whatever. And then I actually like step back and I'm like, what's my experience been? And it's not that. Like education changed my life, and higher education changed my life. And like specifically Harvard, what was so interesting with me with Harvard, somebody figured out that there's a customer that there's a high willingness to pay and specialized courses on specialized topics that will like reskill and retool and sharpen. And I think it's 95% of all of the business schools' revenue is executive education. It's not the MBA. It's actually like professionals that are saying, I need something more. You know what I mean?
But that's a fantastic example of, I think, how writ large higher ed has to adjust and really be extremely focused on a customer base, right? And change the way we deliver education.
Yep. Talk to me about sports. Sports is one of those businesses that's changing.
Yeah.
Like I don't know who it was. I just saw somebody took private equity money for their sports team for their future revenues.
Yeah.
And just sold them off and took a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah.
So it's coming. It's like college sports are professionalizing in a lot of different ways. But
so it's literally changing day by day. So here's today's version of where we are. On July 1st, we implemented the settlement of a court case, which allowed universities to directly share revenue with athletes. So we can now pay athletes across all of our sports $20.5 million. That's different than what many of us know as what's called name, image, likeness, which is basically payment for the use of your name, image, or likeness to represent a product, right? Things like that. Before name, image, likeness was the Wild West, and you could just pay an athlete directly. It basically became a pay for play. But now there is an enforcement agency that every athlete is required to submit a contract to, and it has to be a market value. So if I'm gonna market liquid death, right, you can't pay me $25 million because that's not what my market value is to represent liquid death. It's $50,000, right? So that's fundamentally now provided a set of rules. It's not entirely complete, but a basic economic grounding for college sports.
Yep.
What is different, however, about that, right, is that my budget just went up $20.5 million.
That you have to front.
That if you're going to stay competitive, now you don't have to pay it, but if you're going to stay competitive, right, you've got to pay it. So
I mean, that was always the criticism of universities.
Yeah.
I mean, you take a Johnny Manziel that goes to Texas A&M and they build $200 million stadium around the SEC and he didn't get any of it. You know what I mean? And so there's this push and pull of like.
So hopefully now we're actually, giving people the value for what they're delivering, right? So that's important. Now you have to ask a set of questions. One, how am I going to fund it? And two, how was I funding it? Right? Because it's not clear that state funding should go behind that, right?
Yeah.
And if you look across athletic departments before this came in, there were only 10 that were profitable.
Wow.
Right? So the rest of them were subsidizing some way. I don't know whether it was student fees or donors or state funding were subsidizing athletic departments.
Yeah.
So now you have to ask yourself the question, well, if I'm paying athletes, can I still use that same money to do it? So it's really upended the complete, business model of college sports. And we're seeing a number of models develop. Some are going to donors and saying, I need you to donate more, right? Some are going and saying we're going to be raising ticket prices like crazy to try to, some are going to be reducing sports. And then obviously the natural thing are there loans or private equity that could come in and make some changes? And I think every university is going to do this, in their own unique way. Private institutions are going to be very different than public institutions.
Yeah.
Institutions with donor bases that want to invest in that are going to be different than institutions with donor bases that want to invest in healthcare or education, right? And it's just going to be a very different, I think, unique to institution solution.
So how do you solve it? Like you're early in this.
Yeah.
Like what have you come up with as far as like?
Well, I'm a business guy, so I think hard about a sustainable business model. And so you think about professionalizing, all of the services you offer to fans, right? And making sure that you're providing the best fan experience, humanly possible. And you think about how you would reorganize your university to do that. Because often universities, to provide a service, you go, well, you do that, you do that, you do that. There's no focus, right? You now have to organize around providing an entertainment product. And so, we're in the process of trying to do that.
So exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Like, because I'm a big sports fan.
Yeah.
And the product is getting better every year.
It is.
When you go to Rice Eccles, that experience is better every year.
Yeah.
From how you get greeted to the music to the Jumbotron to the half, like, you know what I mean? Like the experience is getting, it's just like,
it is.
Entertainment in general is just continues to level up.
I mean, and you look at these incredible examples around the country, like the baseball team, the Savannah Bananas, right?
It's fascinating.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Right. So
Live Nation that and again, it kind of goes back to this theme of, I think over the last 5 years, COVID was such an accelerator of like, we held a party at my house and we were probably early from when like it was socially acceptable to hold that party.
Yeah.
And everybody came and they valued it so much more than they would have valued it 2 years before, a year before.
Yeah.
And so there's a piece of like when something gets taken away from you, you crave it more.
Yeah.
And then you take that second element of AI and you say, what is the thing that can't be replicated? And I think it's what you're describing, which is that human experience. It's that leadership. It's that interaction. It's that connection. It's that meaning. And when you have that as the base, AI should be the accelerator to all of it to make it all of it better, whether it's the medical school, like the changes that are going to take place and the innovation that's going to take place through AI, through medicine is going to be like mind boggling, and already is happening, you know.
We're seeing it in amazing ways. And I certainly have like dozens of stories about how it's changing.
So what gets you fired up right now as we kind of close it out? When I asked you a question, we were walking down here, I said, you know, how are you spending your time? What percentage is opportunities?
Mm-hmm.
What percentage is problems? It feels like in your role, if you weren't careful, it could be problems all day, every day.
Yeah, I tell my team, we got offense, we got defense. And I try to stay on offense around opportunities over 70% of the time. And then I got a great team that handles, you know, the natural problems that are going to arise in a big organization. And look, you look at the human potential, right? The ability to change kids' lives through education. There are nothing but opportunities there. You look at the research side, there's nothing but opportunities there. You look at the ability to transform healthcare, nothing but opportunities. And I would just say, as a leader, if I'm not focused on that, I have missed it. And, you know, we as an institution in the last 5 years have grown 62%. We've gone from a $6 billion enterprise to a $9+ billion enterprise. And so when people say, oh, it's so bad in higher ed, I'm like, it's not, right? And in fact, we're fooling ourselves if we're pessimistic.
Wow.
Right? You got to raise your sights. You actually got to see what is going on right now, right?
Talking to you fires me up. I'm just like, because that is a engine of Utah. Like the state of Utah. You take like this, what you're describing right there, that is an engine of Utah. That's jobs, that's innovation, that's bringing the best talent, developing the best talent. Like it, honestly, it pumps me up.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody should be excited to come to work at our educational institutions.
Talk to me about faith. We were discussing faith resurgence in the university and even leadership within faith. And how do you, you know, we've talked about personal faith, but how do you lead in a university that's a state-run university and go create, and I think even the country in general, like, was built on these principles of faith.
Yeah.
And,
you know, let's go back to coming out of COVID, which is when I took over as president. You know, we saw in the student body a despondency because people had been so isolated. And one of the first individuals we brought onto our campus to try to help us with this problem was a gentleman by the name of Arthur Brooks, who specializes in happiness. And he will say, faith, family, friends, and finding passion in a vocation. And so what we realized, if that's the recipe, we have to start talking generally about faith on our campus and how it can be a part of campus life. You know, not in an out of context situation, but my fundamental belief is that faith and science are actually complementary.
Yeah.
And actually, they will motivate each other into discovery of truth, which is what universities actually ought to be doing. And if you have an open dialogue on campus about your faith, regardless of what it is, since I'm not taking sides on faith, right, you actually are going to enhance the educational experience. And so we have started an interfaith initiative that we think is growing. We've trained individuals on how to talk about their faith. Turns out when you learn how to talk about your faith, you actually can learn to talk about other things, right? What are the two things you shouldn't talk about with your friends?
You got
faith and politics.
Religion.
And so if you teach people how to talk about that, it turns out it creates a really positive environment for discussion, which is what we have to be in terms of an educational institution.
Yeah. So how have you done it? How do you make that a strength of the university? Because I think it's just an outside observer. Like, it feels like education in general had tilted too far to the extremes.
Yeah.
One or the other. You know what I mean? And specifically, like, it was, faith's important to me. But you see trends in the world that are concerning, you know what I mean? Where you're like, you got to have a foundation to go build off of but there's a resurgence in this, and you see it a lot, on campuses. And it's not about what to believe, but it's believing in something.
Yeah.
And it's talking about belief and fostering it, have an environment where that's safe for people to actually believe differently and celebrate the differences. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think as the leader of the university, how do you foster that in a way that, allows people to have space to?
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's not overly complicated. It's, I have to be willing to talk about it.
Yeah.
Number one, I have to encourage people to talk about it. And we do that in a variety of ways. We train our students to know how to talk about it. We've also brought in other notable scholars, right? I brought in Tim Shriver. He doesn't necessarily talk about faith, but he teaches you how to treat others with dignity and how to talk to others with dignity. And then we brought in a really interesting gentleman of the Muslim faith, Ibu Patel, who runs Interfaith America. And he's actually the one doing the training, right? He just says, look, we are in a pluralistic society where really we should be viewing ourselves as coming to a potluck dinner.
Yeah.
Where we're bringing our own dish, and we need to be able to explain it.
My experience with this, that, you talk about these profound experiences in life, but I went back and did, this long program at Harvard. And Harvard has this unique ability to bring the world to its campus. And not just at an age where everybody's, older and successful and running businesses. And just being in this environment where you have every ethnicity and every faith represented in one room, and the richness of that experience, like it's fundamentally changed the way that I've seen the world. And you don't walk away, you're just forever changed. You do not see the world the same way ever again. And so I think about how profound that was for me. And it just feels like if you can get it right, that is one of the educational experiences when you're saying, hey, this is a place to create experiences.
Yeah, that is, I think, fundamentally what's different about the University of Utah and many of our state institutions is that ability to bring that, potluck of individuals together. And if you can foster the positivity, I always say, come talk about anything as long as it's positive. Because as long as you're trying to build people, you're welcome.
The breakdown within the state, University of Utah by far has the most out-of-state students, correct?
It does.
Yeah.
And so they bring with them a very different set of backgrounds that are, interestingly, what we're finding when they come to this state, most of them end up staying.
So cool.
They love it here. They love the energy. They love the outdoors.
Yeah.
They love the culture that has been established.
I mean, Utah's incredible.
It's an amazing
Utah
place.
Is an amazing state.
Yeah.
And this has been so fun for me. Like, I've learned so much. The University of Utah is blowing my mind right now. Like, it's like what you're describing, I did not know existed. It's so much bigger than in my mind, how I would think about the university. And it's just fun. I love seeing great leadership. Like, I admire great leaders, and you're a great leader. And so it's fun to see you kind of step up and take this thing that's so important to the state and lead in a way that, that I think all of us looking at you are saying, we love what you're doing and proud to, call you a friend and cheer for you. And so let us know how we can help. Before we finish up, some of the initiatives we talked about, and I want to touch on these. If somebody wants to help Huntsman Center, some of these initiatives, what's the best way to engage?
Contact my office. There are so many different ways to engage with the University of Utah, whether you want to, contribute to this incredible project we've got going down here in Utah County with the Huntsman Cancer Institute, or you want to engage with students, or you want to get involved in innovation. Contact my office. It's easy for us to plug you into what you're passionate about.
For me and my wife, we'd never been involved philanthropically. Like
Mhm.
we weren't ever in that stage in life. And as we've got pulled into it, it's added a whole nother dynamic, but it's also a different world. And so I think, yeah, having people know, yeah, if they want to be more involved, like what are the steps? It's just to start.
Yeah, generally speaking, we have teams of individuals that actually are focused on community outreach or
Yeah.
donor outreach or corporate outreach, and we plug you in. And what we try to do is build partnerships around your passion, right? So, Casey, if you and your wife are interested in first generation college students, right, we would sit down and say, what can we do to make this a bespoke experience for you at the
So
University of
cool.
Utah?
So cool. Thanks for coming, my friend.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate
I
it.
appreciate you.
This podcast is brought to you by Sandlot Partners.